So one thing I always seem to find a bit of a struggle in Football Manager is trying to hire the right staff for my club. I find it tricky to work out which attributes really influence a staff member's proficiency on any given role. There's no clean, simple way to boil all that information down into one figure to show who's genuinely the best in a staff role. That's exactly where the new FMDataLab staff scores tool comes in. It takes the pain out of the whole staff recruitment process by, well, doing the hard bit for you. It works in a similar fashion to how FMDataLab's player role scores tool does, where it uses weighted attributes to calculate a score for each staff role. Instead of scrolling through a wall of numbers and trying to second guess yourself, you'll get a clear, meaningful role score for each role that tells you straight away who's actually suited for what staff role. It doesn't just stop there with staff roles. The staff scores tool also covers coach responsibilities. You'll be able to properly see who's best suited for each area of your training schedule. You can even compare two staff members side by side in lots of fine detail for further analysis. Basically, the staff scores tool finally gives you a logical way to analyse, compare and make better decisions about your staff. I'll get into all the juicy details in a bit, but that's the big idea. Less guesswork, better decisions and a lot less crying whether your under 21's coach accidentally tanks your Golden Wonder Kids development. Now, for the slightly more tedious bit, how to actually get yourself set up to use the staff scores tool. Like with all tools on FMDataLab, there's a tiny bit of groundwork to do first. So first you'll need to download some Football Manager view files. These make sure all the right columns appear in game, so whenever you export, you're exporting the correct columns required for the staff scores tool. Then you'll import these views into Football Manager itself, export a list of your staff using the view you've just imported, and finally upload that exported file to FMDataLab's staff scores tool. So first things first, downloading the staff scores views. You've got two options here. You can either download all FMDataLab views for all the tools from the download views tutorial, which gives you everything in one go, or you can just grab the specific staff score views. To do that, head to the staff scores tutorial, look for the downloading staff scores views section, and you'll find a download staff scores views button. Clicking that will take you over to Mediafire where you can download the zip file. Once you've downloaded that zip file, you'll need to unzip it. Then, once you've unzipped, move the extracted view files into the views directory inside your Football Manager 2024 folder, which lives within the Sports Interactive folder. This directory can differ depending on your operating system. If there happens to be no views folder there, you can simply create one yourself and add the files into it. Right, once that's sorted, it's time to actually import the views into Football Manager. There are two screens you can import the views into. There's the main staff search screen and the staff shortlist screen. All you need to do is head over to the staff page, click on either the staff search or the staff shortlist tab to bring up a list of staff members. Click on the view drop down at the top of the staff list, hover over the custom option, click import view, then navigate to the views directory where you just added your downloaded files earlier. Then select the FMDataLab staff view file. You should see a nice little pop-up confirming the view was imported successfully. And that's it, the views are in. Right, before we dive headfirst into exporting anything, let's just take a moment to run through a few of the caveats and restrictions. You'll see all of them on screen now. These are lifted straight from the tutorial page. They're broadly the same as the ones you'll be familiar with if you use the player role scores tool. The key things to keep in mind here are make absolutely sure you're using the correct view file. At the moment, the staff scores tool is just designed solely for FM24, so unfortunately earlier versions of FM aren't covered at this time. Now, if you're using a custom skin or you have an in-game language as anything other than the UK English language, you might run into a few hiccups. The best bet is usually to temporarily switch back to the default Football Manager skin and clear your in-game cache, then go to export. Also, and this one's pretty important, there's a maximum limit of 20,000 staff per exported file. Anything bigger and it could cause the site to throw a proper fit, and possibly your computer as well. With all that out of the way, let's move on to the actual exporting part, where things finally start to feel a bit more productive. So back over to FM again, just to reiterate, make sure the current view is set as FMDataLab staff view. Then you need to select the first staff member in the list. Once you click on them, you'll see the row gets nicely highlighted. Obviously, before this you can filter and sort whatever way you want to narrow down the list as much as possible. You may want to just only search for scouts, for example. So to select everyone, if you're on Windows, you press Ctrl and A, but if you're on Mac, it's Command and A. Now, sometimes this doesn't work properly and you have to go to another screen and then come back again for it to actually work. Once everyone has been selected, it's time to bring up the export option. So on Windows, you can press Ctrl and P, on Mac OS, it's Command and P. There's also a way to print via the menu in the top right, so if you click on the FM logo, there's an option to print. So this will open up the print options dialog. You need to make sure you choose the web page option. This is important, otherwise it won't export the correct file format. Then you'll be prompted to save the file, so pick a sensible file name and location that you'll actually remember because you'll need it in a minute when we upload to FMDataLab. With your HTML file exported from FM, it's time to upload to FMDataLab. You'll see in the navigation bar there's a new link for staff scores, so click on that and that will bring you to the staff scores upload page. Once you're there, click on the staff scores upload button and choose the HTML file you exported earlier using the correct staff scores view. After you have uploaded your file, you'll be whisked away to the staff scores table view where the real magic begins. Now before we start poking around everything on screen, let's quickly cover how the staff role scores and coach responsibility scores are actually calculated. It'll give you a much clearer idea of what all these numbers actually mean. So the staff scores tool within FMDataLab uses a data-driven scoring system based on weighted attribute analysis to figure out how well each staff member suits each of the 16 staff roles and 11 coach responsibilities in Football Manager. These scores are put together by combining a subset of staff members' attribute values for a given role with the official weighting values from Football Manager's pre-game editor. You can see an example on screen now within the pre-game editor for the assistant manager role. So I initially stumbled across this Reddit post whenever I started developing this about the fact that the pre-game editor actually shows the staff attribute weightings. I'll be completely honest though, I'm not 100% sure what these weightings are truly meant to represent in terms of how necessary it is for a staff member to be proficient in a given role. If anything, reading the comments underneath just left me a little more baffled than when I started, so great success there. One of the comments summed up my confusion perfectly. They said, "Why isn't tactical knowledge weighted for set piece coaches? I'm pretty sure it impacts set piece coach ratings." And then the original poster came back with, "This is the weightings. Tactical knowledge is necessary for set piece coach." Which doesn't really clear it up, does it? Because my understanding initially was that anything that had a weighting was necessary, but that's not what the original poster is saying. Because if you go into the game itself, view a staff member and select the set piece coach role, on the side there you'll see that tactical knowledge is highlighted as a key attribute. Yet according to the pre-game editor, it's apparently not weighted at all for that role. So is it necessary or not? It's the same story with the level of discipline attribute. If you look through the pre-game editor, you'll notice that it has no weighting across any roles, yet when you're in game, it's routinely shown as a key attribute for multiple coaching roles and responsibilities. So basically it's necessary, but it's not, but it is. On the flip side, you've also got roles like performance analyst where determination and judging player ability are actually weighted according to the pre-game editor, but when you check in game, and those attributes aren't highlighted at all as being key for the role. What's going on? Is the pre-game editor correct, or is the in-game display of key attributes the real deal? Well, to be honest, I don't really know for certain, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. There's a strong chance that the pre-game editor's weightings are what the game engine actually uses behind the scenes to judge staff members. Meaning the highlight attributes you see in-game are more of a visual guide than a strict mathematical formula. So yeah, sometimes you'll get key attributes that aren't actually weighted heavily and weighted attributes that aren't shown as key at all. Anyway, no need to panic. I have built in an option for you to edit the staff attribute weights yourself, if you fancy tailoring them to your own liking. Maybe you want tactical knowledge to properly matter for a set piece coach. Maybe you think that the level of discipline should be worth its weight in gold. You can tweak that too. But I'll explain how to do all of that later in the tutorial. Back to how the scores are calculated. The FMDataLab staff attribute weightings, at its heart, the process is actually quite straightforward. We take each relevant attribute for each role, apply the official weighting to it, and then crunch the numbers. Now the weightings from the pre-game editor sit between 0 and 4. So 0 is not important and 4 is very important. FMDataLab gives these numbers a little makeover as I transform them into a more intuitive scale from 0 to 100. This is done by simply adding 1 to each weight value unless it's 0 and multiplying that end result by 20. So for example, a weight that had 2 will become 60 because that's 2 plus 1, which is 3. Multiply that by 20, you get 60. Now alongside staff roles, there are built-in weightings for the 11 coach responsibilities. And these are tied pretty closely together. In FM, you can see the coach responsibilities by heading over to the training screen, clicking the coaching tab and then hitting the edit coach assignments button. This opens up the assignment screen where you'll see all the coaching duties laid out. Hovering over one of them will reveal the key attributes that are important for that responsibility. So the coach responsibility scores use weightings as well, and they aren't random either. They're inherited straight from the attribute weights of the related staff role. So for example, if you're looking at the fitness coach responsibility, the system is pulling these weightings from the fitness staff role weights. It keeps everything neatly tied together and properly aligned. Right, so let's walk through an actual calculation example, just to hammer home how the staff role scores are put together. Let's take the case of finding a top-notch head performance analyst. Now this role is built around 4 weighted attributes. You have determination, which is weighted at 60, judge and player ability, which is weighted out of 80, tactical knowledge weighted at 60, and analysing data is weighted at 100 because it's the most important attribute for that role. Before we look at any staff member though, we need to figure out the best possible score someone could get, which is the perfect benchmark. Basically, what you get if someone found the absolute dream candidate who had 20 out of 20 in every attribute we care about. Here's how this breaks down. We take each attribute's multiplier and multiply it by 20. So to get the multiplier, we basically just take the weighting and divide it by 100. So for the determination here, its weighting is 60, divide that by 100, you get 0.6. This becomes the multiplier. Then you multiply it by 20, because that's the highest possible attribute rating. So 0.6 multiplied by 20 is 12. Now do this for all of the other attributes, so you judge and player ability. So the weighting of 80 means that the maximum score is 16. Tactical knowledge, also 60 like determination, is also 12. And analysing data, because it's the 100, is just at 20. So once you add all those numbers together, you get a theoretical maximum of 60. This is the gold standard we're measuring everyone else against. Now let's chuck an actual human being into the mix. So imagine a candidate with these attributes. So determination's at 11, judge and player ability is 15, tactical knowledge is 17, and analysing data is 16. So we apply the same sort of multiplier to these attribute values, but instead of multiplying it by 20, we are multiplying it by the actual attribute value. So remember, determination had a weighting of 60, that multiplier is 0.6. So, and then we're taking the determination attribute rating, which is 11. So 11 times it by 0.6 is 6.6. And remember, the maximum they can get is 12. So it's 6.6 out of 12. It's the best way of looking at it. So same for judge and player ability. So we take that 80 attribute weighting and you multiply it by the attribute value again, which is 15. So 0.8 multiplied by 15 is 12. So it's got 12 out of 16. Tactical knowledge is 10.2 out of 12, and analysing data is 16 out of 20. So then we add all those numbers together. So that's 6.6, 12, 10.2, and 16, and we get 44.8. So this staff member has achieved 44.8 out of the maximum 60. To convert that to the final roll score, we divide it by the maximum possible score, which is 60. So 44.8 divided by 60, which is roughly 0.7467. Then, just like Football Manager's own system, we scale that up to 20, so we just multiply that number by 20. So 0.7467 multiplied by 20 is 14.93 when rounded to 2 decimal places. So our candidate would land a head performance analyst roll score of 14.93 out of 20, so not too shabby. And hey, if you've managed to stick with me through that little maths adventure led by someone who usually needs a calculator to split the bill at the restaurant, well done. Right, let's crack on and have a nosy at the staff scores table features. This is where all your uploaded staff data lives, and straight away you'll notice it goes way beyond anything you'll find in Football Manager. Alongside the usual general info on all staff members, you'll see colour-coded calculated staff role scores for all 16 staff roles. On top of that, each staff member's top 3 staff roles are outlined, and you can actually see whether any of them are actually their preferred job role, so you can quickly spot who's actually competent in their job role they prefer. You'll also find the coach responsibility scores for each staff member mapped directly to the 11 coaching assignments you'd usually see when setting up your training sessions in FM. This is huge if you want to be a bit more surgical about who handles what in your training setup. And just like with the roles, you get the top 3 coach responsibilities listed too, helping you match the right coach to the right responsibility without having to do mental gymnastics every time. There are also computer attributes. These are group scores that bundle similar attributes together to get an average score to then show broader strengths and weaknesses. Things like goalkeeper coaching or knowledge are all rolled into a single number. You can hover over the little info icon next to these column headers to see exactly which attributes are being averaged out. Finally, you've got the Styles column group, which pulls in stylistic info directly from Football Manager, stuff like pressing style, tactical style, etc. It's perfect if you want to make sure your new coaches actually fit the football and vision you're trying to build, rather than bringing in someone who thinks tiki-taka is a Spanish tapas dish. So worth a quick mention too, if you have the in-game editor installed and enabled in your save, you can unlock even more hidden columns in the table by exporting your staff list using the FMDataLab staff view hidden file instead. Handy if you want everything that Football Manager keeps tucked away under the hood. And just so the table doesn't look like a total monster when you first land on it, the style and additional info column groups are hidden by default. You can toggle them on easily enough by clicking the view button, then clicking the view all button next to whichever group you want to view. Most columns within the table come packed with some filtering tools, making it easy to narrow down and explore staff based on really detailed criteria, because, let's be honest, scrolling endlessly is nobody's idea of a good time. Where it makes sense, number-based columns offer a min and max inputs, giving you sharp control over the range of values you're after. Meanwhile, drop-down menus let you pick multiple options at once for categories, and if you're dealing with anything text-related like the staff names, you've got a handy little search box too. On top of that, almost every column can be sorted, either ascending or descending. You're also not stuck with the table layout as it is. If a column isn't doing much for you, you can click the vertical dots in the header and choose to hide it. If you want a bigger shake-up, the view button is your best friend. This opens up a full column manager where you can hide or show everything, toggle entire groups on and off, or just fine-tune what you want to see. Basically, you're the boss of how much information you're dealing with at any time. And if you want to check out a totally different staff data set, maybe you're after another big hiring spree, you can just hit the upload button and load in a new staff scores HTML file. So one of the key features that really lets you mold the tool exactly how you want it is the ability to tweak attribute weights for each staff role or coach responsibility, because not everyone's idea of a perfect coach is the same, and nor should it be. You can edit the weightings by clicking the Edit Staff Role Weights button just above the staff scores table. That'll open up a dedicated dialog window where you'll find the drop-down menu listing all 16 staff roles and 11 coach responsibilities. Once you pick the role or responsibility you want to update, a form will pop up showing every staff attribute, each with its own number input, ready for you to adjust. You can give each attribute a custom weighting between 0 and 100. After you're happy with your updates, just hit the Update Staff Role Weights button. The table will then recalculate all the role and responsibility scores based on your updated weightings. If you happen to have a change of heart, or if your edits end up being a bit too experimental, you can easily return the role back to its original weightings by clicking the Reset Staff Role Weights button. Or, if you really want a clean slate and wipe out all your custom weightings across every role and responsibility in one go, you can do so by clicking the Reset All Staff Role Weights button inside the main Update Staff Attribute Weights dialog. So another one of the cornerstone features of the staff scores tool is the ability to perform a proper side-by-side comparison between two staff members across a range of key areas, such as just general staff information, a role attributes chart, comparing the role scores and coach responsibility scores, full attribute comparisons and a style comparison as well. Each section gives you different angles to evaluate each staff member's suitability, helping you go far beyond just scanning basic numbers. To get started, on the staff scores table on the left hand side of each staff member's name, you'll spot a checkbox. Simply click on any of these checkboxes to pick the staff members you want to analyse. Once you've selected the two staff members, the Compare Staff button located just above the table will light up and become active. If you change your mind or accidentally pick the wrong person, you can simply hit the Clear Selected button to reset everything and start again. So when you're happy with your selections, you can click the Compare Staff button. This will then open the Compare Staff dialog window. At the top of the dialog, you'll see a neat summary of each selected staff member shown in the order you chose them. The summary includes all the essential details you'd expect, like their name, their preferred job role, their current club if they're employed, their age, nationality, their current staff role, and wage whenever it's available. Beneath that, you'll find the staff role dropdown. This dropdown lets you choose one of the staff roles or coach responsibilities to compare the staff members against. By default, it'll be set to the preferred job role of the first selected staff member, giving you a quick, relevant starting point without needing to fill around. Below the drop-down, there's a horizontal tab menu where you can select between the different comparison views, starting with the Role Attributes chart by default. Inside the Role Attributes chart section, you can carry out a detailed comparison by visualizing the attribute values used to calculate the role scores for the selected role. The first selected staff members' values will be plotted on the radar chart using the purple line to match their colour of their name in the top left. Alongside that, you'll also see the second selected staff member's attribute values plotted with a green line, allowing you to directly size them up against one another across all the key attributes for the chosen staff role. Also, there is a benchmark against the highest staff role score holder in your uploaded file for the selected role. That best staff member could turn out to be one of the two that you've selected, so there might be a little overlap there on the radar chart. The best available staff members data will be showing on the radar chart using the blue line. So within the role score section, you can carry out a detailed comparison of the two selected staff members across all 16 staff roles grouped under coaching, recruitment and medical teams. This interface lets you drill down into each role individually, giving you the chance to examine how both staff members perform, not just in isolation, but side by side for easier judgment. For every role, for each staff member, you'll find the overall role score, which is a colour-coded score showing you how well they fit in that role. Green's obviously good, red's bad. Also shows their rank position, which is where that role sits among the 16 role scores for each member. Then there's a comparison bar, which is a handy visual showing the score gap between the two staff members. So if you ever looked at any of the player or staff comparisons in Football Manager, this will look relatively familiar to you. Also included is a delta value, which is the actual numeric difference in score between the two individuals. This side-by-side view gives you a really clear picture of who's better suited for each role and by how big a margin, whether it's a close call or a complete landslide. Also, the currently selected staff role in the drop-down above is highlighted in the list. The role scores view is great for judging suitability and flexibility across different roles and understanding how each staff member ranks across your staffing needs. Now moving on, you've also got the coach responsibility score section, which works in much the same way, just now focusing on the coaching assignments rather than the full staff roles. Here you'll get a breakdown of how your two chosen staff perform across all 11 coach responsibilities using training, grouped into goalkeeping, defending, attacking, possession, fitness and set pieces. For each responsibility, just like before, you'll see the comparison bar, giving you a precise view of who's better and where. Then we've got the attribute section, which gives you a proper side-by-side look at the attribute profiles of your two selected staff members. This pulls directly from Football Manager's core data, showing you the raw attribute values and the computed attribute scores as mentioned previously. All these attributes are neatly grouped into categories matching Football Manager setup: coaching, mental, knowledge, goalkeeper coaching, analysis and medical. Plus there's the computed group for those calculated values. Next to each category, you'll see the average attribute score for each staff member along with the delta value, which gives you a good overview of how well they perform in that group of attributes and how much better they are compared to the other staff member. On a more detailed level, you can dive into the individual attributes too, checking the exact value for both staff members side by side, complete with a comparison bar. If you used the staff comparison screen in Football Manager before, you'll feel it right at home here. Attributes that actually feed into the selected staff roles weighted score are visually highlighted, and there's a handy question mark icon next to each weighted attribute. Hover over it and you'll see exactly how much that attribute influences the role score. If you want an even cleaner view here, you can click the Show Weighted Attributes checkbox. This filters things down to show only the attributes that are weighted for the role you've selected, perfect for cutting through the noise. Final section is the style section. This gives you a full comparison of the coaching and tactical preferences of your two staff members. So the final thing to flag up in the staff scores tool is the staff info panel. You can access this by clicking on any staff member's name from the table view, and this will slide open a staff info panel, a detailed hub offering a deep dive into everything you could possibly want to know about the selected individual. The structure here is very similar to what you'll find inside the compare staff dialog, but instead of sizing up two staff against one another, you're examining one in full. Inside the panel you'll find all the good stuff: the role attributes chart, their full attribute breakdown, their complete role scores, their top 3 roles, their coach responsibility scores, and also the top 3 responsibilities, their style profile and some general info for good measure. Don't worry, we're not done just yet. You know that nifty compare staff functionality I showed off there earlier? Well, I thought while I was at it, I might as well bring the same magic over to the role scores and Moneyball tools. So let's quickly jump into what's new for both the role scores and Moneyball tools. Starting with role scores. So now in the role scores table, you'll spot the same checkboxes next to player names and a familiar compare players button sitting above the table. Once you've selected 2 players, just hit that compare players button to open up the shiny new compare players dialog. You'll feel it right at home here. It's built in the same spirit as the compare staff dialog. Inside you'll find a neat summary for each player, including their name, the positions they can play, their current club if they're attached to one, current league if they have a club, their age, nationality, the info badges, their best role, their transfer value, and their wage details when available. You'll also notice a select role drop down where you can choose from any of the 117 available player roles to see how well each player stacks up for that particular role across different analysis sections. By default, this drop down will be set to the best ranked position role of the first player you selected. This gives you immediate and relevant starting point. So this best ranked position role highlights the role where the player's role score is closest to the best player in that same role at the start of a new Football Manager save, based on the top role scores dataset that I covered in a previous video. Below all that, there's a horizontal tab menu. This lets you flick between all the different comparison views. It defaults to the role attributes chart. The role attributes chart works like the one for staff. It shows the attributes tied to the selected role and then plots the attribute values for both players alongside the best player in that role from your uploaded dataset. Next, we've got the trajectory section. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, what on earth is this? I'd recommend watching my role trajectories video. It covers all the details about what these trajectories are and how they're worked out. The difference here, compared to the trajectory section in the player info panel, is that you're comparing two players side by side instead of a single player. Instead of the 4 lines that you had per trajectory, you get a nice clean 2-line chart, 1 line for each player. The first selected player is shown with the purple line and the second player with the green line. Above the chart you can pick between 4 different trajectory tab values to swap the trajectory shown in the chart. By default, it starts on the median trajectory, which basically gives you the most balanced, realistic projection for each player's future, rather than getting carried away with wild optimism or pessimism. And just like in the trajectory section in the player info panel, you can toggle between the 4 distinct benchmark subsets. This dynamically updates the benchmark reference lines on the trajectory chart depending on the competition context you're interested in. So if you hover over the trajectory chart, a tooltip pops up showing you the projected role score for each player at that age for each of the 4 trajectories, and crucially, the difference between each player at each trajectory. Now this is perfect if you want to be painfully specific about which player is going to be the better long-term signing, or just to confirm your gut feeling. Now moving on to the role score section. This works similar to what you'll find when comparing staff role scores. Here you can view a full side-by-side comparison across all 117 player roles, neatly grouped into positions, so that's goalkeeper, centre back, full back, wing back, defensive midfielder, centre midfielder, wide midfielders, attacking midfielder and striker. Each role shows a coloured icon indicating if the player is actually capable of playing there with a tick or an X. Finally, we have the attribute section. Again, similar to the staff attributes comparison, here you get a comprehensive side-by-side breakdown of all attribute profiles for the 2 players. Attributes are organised into Football Manager standard groups, which is technical, mental and physical. There's also a computed group. These are the calculated attributes based on a combination of other related attributes merged into one easy to read number. The attribute section also pulls in the attribute analysis values you'll recognise from the attribute analysis radar chart within Football Manager itself. There's even the same show with attributes checkbox, so if you take that, it'll slim down the view to just the attributes that directly contribute to the selected role's role score. It's a brilliant way to keep things focused if you don't want to drown in a sea of numbers you don't actually need to worry about. So now let's take a look at comparing 2 players, but this time within the Moneyball tool. If you've not yet used the Moneyball tool, now is the perfect time to get stuck in. I've already made a few videos covering the Moneyball tool in detail, so I would highly recommend giving those a watch before flinging yourself headlong into it. So inside the Moneyball table view, once again you'll find the same checkboxes beside each player's name. So select 2 players, click the Compare Players button and you'll open up the Compare Players dialog window. Right at the top of the dialog window you'll find another concise summary for each player you've selected, shown in the same order you've clicked them. The summary covers all the essentials like their name, the positions they can play, the current club if they have one, also the current league, their age, nationality, info badges. It also includes their best performance stat and where that stat sits percentile wise compared to other players in your uploaded player list. Their total appearances, the minutes they played, the average rating and their transfer value and wage data whenever it's available. Beneath the summary section you'll find a set of drop down menus for statistic and position along with the show percentiles button. In the statistic drop down you can pick a computed or action stat to dive into. By default it'll pre-select to which stat has the highest percentile ranking for the first selected player. Changing the selected stat will only update the comparison radar chart section below and not any of the other sections. The position drop down lets you narrow things down based on player position. This way, the average stats shown in the radar chart will be based only on players from your uploaded file who play in that position. By default, this is set to all positions, but you can hone in if you want to. Updating the position dropdown will also filter on the key area section, and if you've got percentiles enabled, the statistics section as well. The Show Percentiles button swaps out the raw stat values for percentile ranks in the radar chart. This can make everything feel a bit more digestible because you're not just seeing what a player achieved but how it stacks up compared to others. Also, just so you know, updating the position dropdown dynamically updates all the percentiles too. So it updates percentile figures based on players in that position only, giving you a much more targeted view of a player's performance. Below this you'll spot a familiar horizontal tab menu. By default it'll land you on the comparison chart view first. The comparison chart is the exact same one you'll find in the player info panel on Moneyball, with a small difference. The second player you select is plotted with the green line on the radar chart. The statistics section covers all the fundamental and derived stats, organised into neat groups within accordion style list. Inside each group, related stats are bundled together, making it far easier to evaluate each player across a particular aspect of the game, rather than being bombarded with random numbers thrown in your face. With each stat you're presented with a visual comparison bar and raw stat values for each player. The comparative bar is brilliant for immediately spotting which player is stronger in that area, and the delta value, that little number showing you the difference between them, gives you a dead simple, precise way to see not just who's better, but by how much. If you prefer to view data in context rather than cold hard numbers, you can click on that Show Percentiles button. That way the whole section will display percentile ranks instead, helping you view performance relative to other players in your uploaded file rather than just seeing big numbers without knowing if they're actually good. Updating the position drop-down value will update the percentiles to see how each player then ranks against other players in your uploaded file that can play in the selected position. For example, if you're looking at goal-oriented stats, you might want to set the position to strikers, as goals are their bread and butter. Otherwise, you'd be ranking players from all positions, including goalkeepers who don't typically find the opposition net, and there's not many Rogerio Senes running around. The top 10 statistics section highlights each player's strongest metrics based on where they rank highest across all available stats. For each top 10 stat, you'll see the percentile rank, which is how the player stacks up against everyone else, and the raw value, which is the number that they achieved for that stat. And again, you get a visual comparison bar plus a delta value showing you the gap between two players for each stat. The key area section then pulls everything together at a higher level. It gives you a top-down view of both players' performances across 8 crucial aspects of the game. Each key area is visualized in a circular proportional chart. The outermost circle represents the maximum possible value achieved by any player in your uploaded file, while the inner circles show how close each selected player is to getting to that ceiling. You have the first selected player as the purple and the second selected player in the green. Hovering over any area gives you a full breakdown, listing every stat that feeds into that area along with each player's stat value, each player's percentile rank, the maximum possible value for that stat from your uploaded player list, plus the delta for both the stat value and percentile rank. Now if you want an even sharper comparison, you can use the position drop down here too, isolating the maximum values and percentiles based only on players in the selected position. Well, there we have it. That's everything new in this new update for FMDataLab. Apologies for the little bit of a hiatus since the end of last year. Hopefully this new staff scores tool goes in some way to making up for it. But before I go, just a massive thank you to everyone. FMDataLab recently crossed over 8,000 signed up users and about 22,000 users in total, which is absolutely mad to me. Also, to keep up with any new updates, I'd recommend you follow FMDataLab on all the socials. They'll be in the description. And also give this video a like and a subscribe if you found it helpful, or even if you didn't and just feel a little bit sorry for me. And finally, remember, with the new staff scores tool now live, you officially got no excuse for hiring that absolute liability of a director of football ever again. Goodbye for now.